I want to welcome everyone to today's Children's Commission meeting. This is the second of the year. And on behalf of my wonderful colleague, our co-deputy Supreme Court Justice, Rebecca Huddle, we, on behalf of the entire court, want to let everyone know how much we appreciate this very, very important work, and that your willingness to dedicate so much time to this very, very important issue. We welcome your feedback. We welcome your comments about how we can utilize this valuable time of so many of you whose time is so precious to make this as efficient and as meaningful as possible to help serve these children and families that we're here to serve. We've had a lot of comments from you all over the past year, and it's been very helpful to the staff and to Justice Huddle and I to figure out exactly what you all as experts think how we can do this better to continue to do our jobs in a way that's going to really work. As you all know, we have decided to continue the virtual format in every other meeting. If you all like that, please let us know. If you don't like that, please let us know. We want to do what makes the most sense for everyone. And if it makes more sense, I know that I really did enjoy our meeting in person at the last meeting. It was very nice to get together. The give and take, just being there in person is valuable. But we all, Justice Huddle and I, certainly are very, very aware of how imposing that can be on your time. And you all are very, very busy people. And so lots of what we do is always a balance. And we just need to know which of those options outweighs the other. So please do let us know. We'll send out another questionnaire at the end of this meeting. And please be very honest and upfront about your feelings about it, because we take it seriously. Let's see, you might recall, yes, at the last meeting, we had two great presentations about how the paradigm in child welfare is shifting to better support birth and foster parent partnerships. And that's something that's really a relatively new idea. I had vaguely been aware of it, but certainly not to the extent that I feel that I am now after those very, very valuable conversations. And what a wonderful concept for the biological family and the foster family and the adoptive family to continue to be able to work together as a team. So that's something that we decided that we were going to look at and focus on because of the last meeting. And there seemed to be a lot of agreement that that was something we need to delve into further. Another is the urgent need to address children's mental health issues in the context of child welfare. And in a moment, the staff is going to go over plans to address that. And actually both of these issues. We're going to have a seminar conference with the joined with the Mental Health Commission in a couple of months, I believe. What is the date for that, Jamie?
June 24th.
Okay, June 24th, so coming up very quickly. I think that that's going to be very, very helpful and beneficial. So let's see, again, I want to thank you all for taking the time to be here today. It's so important. We appreciate your serious contributions to this important area of the law. And I can't ever stress enough that I hope you all know that it's not just Justice Huddle and myself, but every member of the court takes these cases, this subject, very, very seriously, and as seriously as any matter that we decide. It's important, and we all know it, and we're dedicated to it. So with that, I would like to turn it over to my wonderful colleague, Justice Huddle.
Thank you, Justice Lerman, and good morning, everyone. I have the privilege of covering a few housekeeping matters about how the meeting will run today. But first, I wanted to just take a moment and echo a little of what Justice Lehrman just said, which is to say, let's pause a second and think about where we are. We're in a moment of the year where everyone's life feels a little frenetic. We're coming up on the end of the school year, or the court is coming up on the end of its term. And so just knowing how chaotic life can feel some days, I want to pause for a second and acknowledge everyone here and your real effort to make time and space for this really important issue. So thank you for doing that. Thank you for the commitment that you show by doing that for each of our meetings. Okay, so with those thanks, I'll move on to quickly cover what I think most of us already remember from having done these meetings by Zoom the past couple of years, which is to say, we'll end at 2 o'clock today, and we won't have any breaks between now and 2 o'clock. If you are speaking, then obviously we all want to hear you, but if you are not speaking, we'd like to ask that you kindly stay on mute to avoid background noises. We have some committee and collaborative council members participating in listen-only mode, and we're broadcasting the meeting today live on YouTube. If you should have a question, the question and answer function is operational today. And to comply with grant requirements, the commission staff will distribute an electronic match form after today's meeting. So thank you for making today run smoothly. Let's kick it off.
Thank you, Justice Huddle. So now I invite you to look at tab 1, which is page 9 in the PDF, in the meeting notebook. And this document includes commission, committee, and collaborative council membership, as well as staff. At the last meeting, we provided some background on our new commission members, but several were unable to join us at that time. And so one is Ms. Carla Baker. Ms. Baker, are you here today?
Yes, ma'am.
We would like for you to please introduce yourself to us.
Okay. My name is Carla Baker. I am a mom that lives in East Texas. I have experience with CPS involvement, both on the, well, I guess all three, on the investigation level, FBSS, and a removal where my children went to a kinship placement. Court they've been returned, and I'm looking forward to bringing that perspective to the commission as we move forward with this year. I work, I'm actually contracted through HHSC for Maximus, and I participate with the Brownsboro Youth Football Foundation. I sit on that commission, and I work with Addiction Recovery Ministries here in the Henderson County area. I'm also a parent collaboration group representing Region 4, both on the local and state level. And I'm looking forward to see what we could do working together.
Thank you so much for that, Ms. Baker, and welcome. I know that your input will be invaluable to us. So thank you very much, and welcome. And I believe that Ms. Fleming, Heather Fleming, has she arrived? She still is not here, correct? Okay. And hopefully when she gets here, perhaps someone on staff will let me know, because we would certainly like to get to know her a little bit better as well. So we have some news that's disappointing, but we will get through that. And that is that Judge Laura Leora, who is our tribal court judge of Yalitza del Sur Pueblo tribe, as you all will remember, last meeting was her first meeting, and she had so much to offer, and we certainly need that type of expertise dealing with those kinds of issues. Good for her. She got a wonderful job opportunity, but it's very, very busy and very demanding, and so she's not going to be able to continue with us. And so we are in the position of looking for someone else who has that type of expertise and background, because it's so important with the work that we do. But we will certainly miss her. Our acquaintance was brief, but it was meaningful, and hopefully she continued to work with us as much as possible. There's a few membership changes to the committees to highlight today. Judge Rich Garcia of San Antonio retired from the bench some time ago, and he recently rolled off of the training committee. Judge Garcia was an invaluable member of the commission's training, education, and other committees and work groups during his time on the bench. And we certainly hope that he's going to continue to stay involved on an ad hoc basis. And knowing him, I know that he will do that. So we will miss him. So please join me in thanking Judge Garcia for his many, many years of service to the commission. Collaborative council member changes. There are several changes to announce, including the following new members. Dania Carter is the founder and CEO of Heart of Courage, which provides peer mentors for Dallas mothers who are involved in CPS cases. Dr. Linda Garcia is the Senior Vice President at, is it To Engage, I believe is the name of the organization. And this is the single source connection contractor for community-based care in Region 2, which is located in the Abilene, Wichita Falls area. We know that each of these stakeholders will strengthen the council and the commission's efforts, and we certainly welcome them both with open arms and much, much gratitude. And additionally, Christine Gendron has left her position with TFI and rolled off the Collaborative Council as well. And we also want to thank her for her many contributions. We are also thrilled to be joined today by one of our counterparts who we spoke of earlier and briefly talked about, and that is Justice Nancy Saite. And I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. I hope I am. If I'm not, excuse me. Justice Saite is the chair of the commission in Nevada and a former justice on the Supreme Court of Nevada. She joined us with her Nevada team in person in 2017, and we are so glad to continue to work with her to ensure court improvement remains at the forefront of child welfare cases across the nation. We're so excited to have you. We're so excited of the efforts that you're making, Justice, in your wonderful state. And please share your comments with us at this time.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Justice. It is my pleasure, and I feel quite privileged to be with you today. I mentioned earlier that from the perspective of our child and family serving community in Nevada, you all are the absolute gold standard. And we strive every single meeting to hold ourselves up to someday we will be like Texas. And that absolutely is our goal. We have followed your model. Very briefly, first and foremost, I think some of my committee members may be listening in. And so if you are, hello to my fellow commission members, and thanks for being here. I'm going to just briefly give you sort of a rundown. We are just moving into our year number 5 as a commission. I want to point out one very significant difference. When our commission was created in Nevada, it was created, actually it was my parting gift from my colleagues when I retired from the court. They gave me a commission. And they were ever so thoughtful, except they gave me no funding. And so the Nevada Commission has worked for the last 5 years with absolutely no outside fiscal support. But we have made progress. We spent our first year gathering both data and information about all of the committees, task forces, statutorily created or otherwise, that existed in Nevada. We tried to bring all of those commissions to one place, to bring everyone under the umbrella of this commission. I will tell you that 5 years later, we continue to work on that process. We divided ourselves into 5 subcommittees. We were behavioral health, juvenile justice, education, child welfare, and CIP. Our CIP sits as a subcommittee of the commission. Again, modeling ourselves after you all, we do quarterly presentations that, quite frankly, just hearing you mention how much you learned from your last presentation, I can echo that. Our presentations have been, because of course they are presented by subject matter experts, they have been so well received, and several of those presentations are forming our ARPA-esque, because we learned so much from what those people that would otherwise not be a part of this discussion brought to our table. We completely redirected our commission during the 18 months of COVID. And to say that we redirected, we set aside any of our subject matter research, any of our training programs. We went boots on the ground. To the point, my favorite example is one of our commission members is the lead district attorney in the family division of our courts. She actually gathered a group of her fellow DAs and went into one of our most underprivileged, unfortunately unrepresented neighborhoods, to be sure that since our kids all went virtual with learning, that those kids had access to computers. It was a literal door to door, knocking on the door. We can get you a book, a Chromebook, to facilitate the education process. And I've never been prouder of a commission member who gathered the little resources that she had and literally went door to door in a pretty dicey neighborhood, but did so because of the obvious need that our families needed. We're coming back around now into the focus of our 5 subcommittees and their objectives. We are moving to combine, we had a statutorily created Juvenile Justice Oversight Commission. We are moving to combine the Juvenile Justice Oversight Commission, the Children's Commission, and all of the other cataloged committees into one statutorily created commission. And we're doing that primarily because we want to have all 3 branches as a part of the process. So our commission will move from the Supreme Court into whatever this umbrella becomes. We are going into a legislative session, so we don't know yet what it's going to look like. But our governor's staff has just heartily supported our efforts, and the executive branch wants to help us both with funding and with staff. And so we felt that this is a better way to create the commission in a way that is able to serve the state perhaps a little bit more efficiently. And in order to keep this short, we are proud to tell you that although we continue in Nevada to be parents to over 4,500 children, I know that pales by comparison to your numbers, but we have finally grown from a 2-hour commission meeting. We are now moving into a 3 to 4 hour commission meeting because there is just so much to do, to learn, and to disseminate. And so again, as I said, following your great model, we're moving up. And it is our hope that we can continue to use you as resources, because your model is, you should be so very proud. There's nothing like it in the nation. And it is an honor for me to have been able to have these few minutes to chat with you. I will certainly echo NCJFCJ, of course, sits in our northern region up in Reno. And yes, the annual conference is coming up, and I would love to see as many of you possible. Darlene, I hope I get to see you there. And so thank you for allowing me to be here today to spend this few minutes proudly telling you what our commission has done and what we hope to do in the future. So thank you all very much. And I echo the 2 justices emphasis on thanking everyone who sits in one of these little squares right now. What you bring to the table makes what we do the stellar model that it is. And so thank you for your time and your commitment.
Thank you
thank
so much. Thank you so much, Justice. We really appreciate your being here and what you're doing. Did I understand you correctly that you said that your commission is no longer going to be under the Supreme Court?
Yes, that is our current plan. We're not exactly sure how we want it to look. We were created by an administrative order, and we feel, frankly, that we have outgrown the breadth of that docket. And so we're working with a legislator, our governor's office, and I have a co-chair who is a current justice. We are all looking toward what will be a better model. If we find that just coordinating by councils or subcommittees still remains the best model, we'll stay under the Supreme Court. But we're we're not exactly sure how that's going to look.
So what's the option? What else, where would it be, another one of the branches, or?
Well, and that's the dilemma. You have identified the dilemma. We want to make it, if we go, into a legislative mandate, then it's one branch. If we stay in the Supreme Court, I think we have better breadth or a better foundation to cover all of the branches. But our current governor is very interested in particularly behavioral health of youth and families. And so we have actually a specialized committee that is currently looking into how a 3-branch entity would look and where it should rest. And one of the options we're looking at right now is a co-chairmanship, a tripartite chairmanship, basically, with representatives from each of the other branches. But I will tell you, underneath all of this is a desire to find funding. And, we can put a little bit of money into our budgetary requests from the Supreme Court, but we thought if we spread it out over the 3 branches, we might be more effective and be able to gather a few more dollars. So it's a work in progress, and I will happily come back and report to you what that turns out to look like when we have it in place.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Justice. We really appreciate that and your participation.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay, so now we need to just get to some housekeeping things that need to be dealt with. For example, adopting the minutes from February 25th of this year. So as you all know, we met in person. The minutes were distributed. They're behind tab 2, which is page 13 in the PDF of your notebook. Everybody has had the opportunity to review the minutes. And so are there any corrections to be made? Hearing none, is there a motion to adopt the minutes from that meeting?
I move adoption. This is Darlene.
And I'll second. This is Vicky Spriggs.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, the minutes are adopted. And so now I'm going to turn it over to our fantastic director, Jamie Bernstein.
Thanks so much, Justice Lehrman, and hello, everybody. It's so great to be here with you today as we acclimate not only to this virtual world, but now we're in the hybrid world where we're trying to figure out how to do in-person meetings and schedule commuter time to get on Zoom and not be late. So I echo the gratitude of our chairs and continue to be inspired by their leadership. And I'm really excited to kick off our staff update for today. We really want to continue with the theme of actively engaging you all. Each of you were chosen for your subject matter expertise. So we really want to be responsive to what you all see as the pressing issues of the day. I want to start kind of piggybacking on what Justice Lehrman mentioned from our last meeting, the 2 follow-up items that we identified. The first was the fantastic presentations from Paula Bibb-Samuels. Hi, Paula, you did such a great job. Thank you for that great information about the birth and foster parent partnership model. And we really look forward to seeing that model proliferate in Texas, and hope you'll stay in the loop with us as it expands into our state. And we also heard from the folks at TexPop, the Permanency Outcomes Project. And I did want to follow up with you all that there has been a significant amount of work with TexPop related to the judiciary that the Children's Commission has been supportive of. There's a judges toolkit on the TexPop website, and I'll put the chat into the Q&A. I'll put the URL in just a minute. But there's a judges toolkit that has resources that will be expanded over time that really start to develop the concepts of the role of the judiciary in this new model. And there will also be a video series featuring me and many of the other judges who are in the implementation sites for TexPops. So you can access those tools at the link that I'll provide, and they will be developed over time. As Justice Lehrman mentioned, the second priority issue identified was children's mental health, which we've known is an issue for a very long time, but it's reached an absolutely critical point. And there is a lot of great work happening in our state, but it's happening in silos and in separate conversations. So the goal is to have a collaborative roundtable discussion in partnership with the Judicial Commission on Mental Health, which will be the first of its kind for us to host a roundtable with the two judicial commissions. And it'll be monitored by someone you all know and love, JCMH Jurist in Residence and former Judge John Specia, former Commissioner of DFPS. It'll include subject matter experts from child welfare, juvenile justice, and mental health. And one of our commissioners, Luann Southern, will provide a brief kind of state of the state, is what we're calling it, on children's mental health, which will really frame the conversation and hopefully a very productive discussion. Before we turn to our committee reports and talks about the future, I want to point out that updates about our activities between February and May are detailed in the report to the commission that's behind tab 3 in the meeting notebook. So if you have any questions about our past activities, you can find many of those answers there. But if you still have more questions, please don't hesitate to contact me or a member of the team. There's only one thing I wanted to point out briefly, which is the roundtable on the use of the Forensic Assessment Center network that occurred on April 11th, 2022. And for those who are not familiar, Senate Bill 1578 during the 87th regular session charged the Children's Commission in collaboration with DFPS to study the use of this network, which provides consultative services by child abuse pediatricians, often in cases with physical abuse or medical issues that are subject to a child abuse investigation. The roundtable included about 40 subject matter experts, including parents with lived experience, attorneys, advocates, judges, medical professionals and specialists, and DFPS, of course. We also convened a listening session only with parents to hear about their recommendations for improved use of the network, and that was really informative. Amy Corbin on our team will talk about this in just a minute, but I wanted you all to be aware that there's a report that's forthcoming in September that we'll provide to the legislature that will have joint recommendations made in collaboration with the department. I'm gonna transition now to the focus of the next hour of our time, which is planning for our next fiscal year. So our CIP, our Court Improvement Program strategic plan and self-assessment are due to the Children's Bureau at the end of June. And this time period right now is really when we need to start planning for our next fiscal year so that we can provide that amended strategic plan to the Children's Bureau. And then we'll come back to you all at our September in-person commission meeting with that proposed slate of activities in the budget so that we can hit the ground running when our federal fiscal year begins on October 1. So what we hope to do today is to share with you the new ideas that have been identified by our team and the 4 standing committees, which are systems improvement, legal practice and process, training and data. And we really want to seek your input about whether these are the right areas of focus for the Children's Commission. Please don't be alarmed if you don't hear about your favorite topic or issue. Most, if not all, of our current strategies in the commission report will continue on their current trajectories. What we're going to be sharing now is either a supplement or the next chapter or a new idea for our current work. Obviously, we have a finite amount of time and resources, and we want to be confident that we're spending those resources on the identified priorities from our Children's Commission. So after the staff lay out each committee report, I'll pause and ask for input about whether these ideas hit the mark. And to ensure we have time for each committee, I might signal a transition to move on to the next committee, but please know if we run out of time today, the door is very much open for you to contact us afterwards. Any questions before we begin? Okay, hearing none, I will turn it over to Amy to kick off the systems improvement.
Thank you, Jamie. Good morning, commissioners. As Jamie stated, myself and Jocelyn Fowler will be addressing the systems improvement, and all of the work that is being done under the systems improvement committees, it's going to continue its forward progress in the upcoming year. But we did want to present a few projects for your consideration. First, on the prevention front. Prevention efforts are super important to the commission, and we plan to continue our support, and you'll probably hear a little bit more from Sasha about the Early Intervention Court Liaison project that we're working with PEI and OCA. But in addition to supporting that, we're wanting to help support House Bill 3041. Now, this bill created a new section to the Family Code for a pilot program regarding family preservation services. This pilot program has a very specific court involvement piece, and so we're really looking forward to a future collaboration with the department on expanding and supporting this program. As both Justice Lerman and Jamie mentioned, the commission, along with the Systems Improvement Committee, is proposing exploring a type of parenting partnership program. Everyone recognizes that there are some huge benefits of parenting peer support. So we would like to explore this, perhaps an exploratory committee or some other forum to really brainstorm it out so that when we start and dive into this project, it's ready to go and it's held by the people who know what they're doing. And so it may end up ultimately living under systems improvement. We may end up housing it under the legal practices and process committee, but we're ready to kind of start this brainstorming on this critical topic. Lastly, as Jamie mentioned, the FACN. So we are in kind of knee deep in writing this report for recommendations to the legislature. None of these recommendations have been finalized, but we know that there's going to be some great future deliverables. And so sort of like the parenting partnership, we don't know where it's going to ultimately land, but we know it's an important piece to the work that we all do. So we're really looking forward to finding a home and really working on it. I'm now going to pass it to Jocelyn.
Thanks, Amy. Hello, everyone. So next up on our systems improvement potential projects for the next upcoming fiscal year, in January of 2021, in partnership with the Texas Tribes and DFPS, the Commission hosted the first statewide Indian Child Welfare Act Summit. It was virtual. It was a virtual one-day event, and we had almost 1,000 attendees, which included tribal members, judges, attorneys, DFPS staff, and CASAs. And all parties are interested in continuing this training and potentially making it a regular occurrence. My partners at the Tribes and DFPS and I are already brainstorming ideas for logistics and timing and content. The first summit was a great opportunity to reach statewide and across stakeholder groups. And the idea behind the summit is really to educate on the mechanics of ICWA and also strengthen our tribal state relationships, not only between the statewide agencies and the tribes, but also community at the community level as well. And I want to acknowledge that this fall term for the Supreme Court, they will hear oral arguments on the Brackeen v. Holland, and I'm sorry, the Supreme Court of the United States, they will hear oral arguments on the Brackeen versus Holland case. That's the case that may determine the constitutionality and application of ICWA. And so we know, depending on when this summit might land and when that ruling might come out, that will have to be adaptable for our content to the court's ruling. But regardless of the outcome, our partnerships with the tribes and the importance of the information sharing across our communities remains important and essential to the work of child welfare. And also, as Justice Lerman and Jamie mentioned, we will be hosting a joint roundtable with JCMH on June 24th to address the children's mental health crisis. And I'm really looking forward to bringing all together stakeholders on this important issue. And we will publish a report with recommendations that emerge from those discussions, and anticipate that some of those projects, that there will be projects that come out of the roundtable for our next fiscal year agenda. Not sure exactly what those will look like and exactly where they'll land, as well as what Amy mentioned earlier, but that those we anticipate being on the horizon as well.
Thank you both so much. So just as a refresher, supporting prevention efforts, parent partnerships, the Forensic Assessment Center Network, and ICWA Summit, and children's mental health. Any feedback or thoughts on those areas of focus for the Systems Improvement Committee?
This is Luann Southern, and I just want to say, as I sat here listening, I am very excited. I think this is spot on. Every single one of these efforts is very needed, and so kudos to all of you. I think this is very exciting.
Thank you, Luann. Any other commissioners have insights about whether these are the appropriate topics for us to focus on in the coming fiscal year?
Hi, Gary here. I just echo Luann's comment about how awesome. I mean, lots of great work going on. And so I'm certainly in favor. I do have a quick question, a little bit more detail about the sort of the youth and family peer support piece to that. And I may have missed the legislative bill, but what the thought is about connecting that with both the child welfare and mental health and even the juvenile justice activities.
Thank you, Dr. Blow. That's a great question. I don't think that one has any legislative connection. It just keeps coming up in so many discussions that we have. And I think as a court improvement program, we need to figure out what our place is, but we think that it's so important whether it goes into a multidisciplinary law office or whether it's embedded into the agency. How do we as a state get this to the next level where we actually have peer partners for young adults and for parents navigating the system? So that would be the goal, is really kind of an exploratory group to help identify where it could live, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. I just, let me echo again my personal support for expanding the work that folks do, both through the capacity and access to services and supports like this, and also I think the literature demonstrates that it can really improve outcomes when youth and family members provide peer support to each other. It's a very powerful both workforce tool as well as intervention tool. So kudos for making that happen, and here to provide assistance if necessary.
And to Gary's point, it would be wonderful to see the work that's being done come into fruition in terms of policy. It would be absolutely wonderful. And I'm willing to help out with the group as well.
Thanks, Chuba.
And this is Paula Samuels. I would love to see the parent partnership or the lived experience, I should say. Those individuals with lived experience in all of those areas, especially with mental health, because a lot of times we really don't know how your parents and children are affected, how their mental health is affected. But if you involve those who have already gone through it, then we can kind of help guide the conversation, the different things that you all are going to do, I know wonderfully, even once I'm gone, to make it better for those that are in care.
Very critical point. Thank you, Paula.
Jamie, this is Sheila. I just want to echo everything everyone has said, and just to kind of also acknowledge how important the peer support model is. And there's some really excellent examples of how effective it can be. There's one in particular at Health and Human Services in our behavioral health services area that focuses on substance use and mental health. And we have peer support teams all across the state of Texas that are working, and examples of the effectiveness of how they have been able to really change the path and trajectory of individual lives through that process. So very powerful process and really effective. And it speaks to people in a way that they can really connect. So just wanted to encourage that and support it.
That's a great point, that there are some models we can already look to that are functioning very well. Thank you, Sheila. Okay, well, if there's nothing else on systems improvement, then we will transition now to legal practice and process. And Renee and Dylan, I think Renee's going to kick it off.
Thank you, Jamie. The Legal Practice and Process Committee convened on April 28th and reviewed the slate of proposed projects for fiscal year 2023 from its various work groups and committees. Additionally, the Legal Representation Committee, which falls under LPP, convened on May 5th. I will discuss the areas of focus for the Legal Practice and Process Committee for the upcoming fiscal year, and Dylan will provide focus on the LRC Committee. The 3 areas of focus for legal practice and process next year include the continued creation and updating of various guides and project deliverables, including but not limited to a mediation toolkit, a comic book targeted at older youth explaining the attorney-client relationship, and the parent resource guide. The creation of video and webinar content to address topics such as advantages of pre-adversary mediation, the enhancement of parent representation through the use of trauma-informed practices, and parent voice videos explaining the attorney-client relationship. And last but not least, the DFPS Representation Subcommittee will assist in identifying speakers and topics for the anticipated child welfare track of the TDCAA, that's the Texas District and County Attorneys Association, Crimes Against Children training that should occur next spring. At this time, I would open the floor for any questions and or comment on your perspectives on how we should prioritize these planned resources.
Thanks, Renee. I think that was a lot of great information. So just as a refresher, there was some kind of older ideas of a mediation toolkit that's already been in the works, a comic book for older youth or videos for older youth to really help them understand the attorney-client relationship, updating the parent resource guide, and more webinar and video content, as well as a training track at TDCAA. So did I summarize that okay, Renee? Any thoughts on those priorities for the legal practice and process group? And then Dylan will go into the LRC group.
Hi, Jamie, Judge Huffsteller. One of the things I want to say, and this is for all of us who are hearing those kinds of cases, mediation is something that we really don't think about in the CPS arena, but it is such a valuable tool. And I'll just say this by way of a story. I've told it before, so if you've heard it, smile and listen again. There was a case in Galveston County some years ago under Judge Baker. Judge Susan Baker ordered a mediation in a case that neither side believed was ever going to settle. When they went to mediation, it settled. The one thing that broke the ice and caused the case to settle was mom agreed to terminate as long as she got the annual school picture for her child. That's all she wanted, was to be able to follow. She knew that she couldn't take care of her child. She knew that it was best. It wasn't going to settle. It was going to take a week-long trial, but when it went to mediation, and it surprised everybody, even Judge Baker, all she wanted was the school pictures. So it's not something that we usually think of in the realm of CPS cases, but it is something that I think still surprises everyone, that you can actually resolve a lot of these cases through mediation.
Where are we now on family group counseling? I know that I bring that up a lot because that's something that we used to do a lot, which is mediation, but with the extended family coming together and those kinds of things. Lots of times we're very successful because the family members were able to counsel through it. Excuse me, I got something in my throat. Where are we on that, Jamie?
I know we have Jillian Bonacristi on the phone. She's from placement, but we can follow up with DFPS about family group conferencing. I believe it's supposed to be in the regular order of business, but I think it can vary in practice. So that's something we can focus on.
Generally, we always have a family group conference prior to the status hearing, after the adversary hearing, to prepare the service plan, and this
is Judge Rhonda
beneficial.
And that's happening. Is that happening statewide in different communities, or how is that happening? Because I know for a long time that was kind of cut off. And is that pretty extensive now again?
I believe that's statewide practice.
Okay, that's good.
This is Judge Hunter. We are doing family group counseling in here in North Texas. That's something that's done on a regular basis. And we also do mediations on every Child Protective Services termination case.
Right.
This is Sheila Craig. I just have to say to all of you all who are doing family group conferencing and mediation, I'm so glad to hear that. There was a lot of data and research around the family group conference process showing that it did not increase recidivism, and that it oftentimes, the resolution allowed families to really be humanized and respected, and it ended in a process where everyone involved was content and satisfied with the outcome. And so I'm glad to hear that. And I also am just shouting out kudos around the idea of mediation as a really strong option. We use mediation in my office, in the Civil Rights Office, and to resolve many cases. And it's really a phenomenal process when it's done right, and can truly leave everyone feeling whole in the process. So.
Well, I have a question before we move on to a different topic. Is it sounds like the people who have, and that was a moving story, Judge Huffstetler, and it sounds like many folks in this group think it's a great idea and have seen some success in those strategies, mediation and counseling. Is that completely discretionary now with the individual judge? And if that is true, is there some benefit to a scenario where I'm not necessarily talking about rulemaking or legislation, but perhaps a communication that might encourage or at least help judges who aren't already engaging in that kind of process consider it across the state?
I think the process of mediation is solely in the discretion of the individual judge, but the family group conferencing is within the policy of the department. That's my understanding.
And Justice Huddle, as an old trial judge, we used a mediation robustly in Travis County, robustly. However, it is not without a fiscal impact on county government. And as far as I know, there's not a dime of state money that goes to it. It'd be really nice if there'd be some fiscal support from the state to encourage mediation. So therein lies some of the pushback in certain jurisdictions.
Who does that mediation, Justice?
In Travis County, we have, just like we have an attorney wheel, we have a mediation wheel. However, there's a great deal of deference to the parties, as you might understand, Justice Learman. Just as you want to have confidence in your attorney, you want to have confidence in the mediator that you select for a particular conflict. And so oftentimes we primarily deferred to the parties to choose the mediator that they felt most comfortable with on the wheel. But we had a mediation wheel in Travis County.
And so, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Excuse me. No, I'm sorry, Justice. I think there's some specialized training too for mediators who do CPS mediations. I spoke to one this morning and she said that she had gone to something in Central Texas. I guess it's a week long, so it's pretty extensive, I understand.
Judge Jackie, did you also have a comment or a question?
Yes, my comment is I think mediation in CPS cases, I mean, years ago, nobody seemed to use it. And now, it's a requirement, I think, for most judges, before you go to trial, that you at least try a half-day mediation. But, one of my main comments is just like child welfare laws becoming highly specialized, the practice of mediation in these cases is just as specialized. And I think that's something that we need to acknowledge with, support for both the mediation, toolbook or toolkit that's coming out. And additionally, with trainings that are provided in different forums, because really understanding, what's possible in a CPS case maybe it is photos, but realizing how, you can transition between different family members, how they can be studied, those kind of things, just really truly understanding how a CPS case works from front to back, I think is very important to making sure that these cases have a genuine opportunity for settlement. So I think it's really important that the commission as a whole supports the specialized nature of CPS mediation.
And Justice Learman, just real quick, I think one of the things that would be very helpful, because I know a lot of people don't even know that this commission exists. But there are a lot of family law practitioners that get in and get out of a CPS case very rarely. And they're not necessarily bad lawyers. They're just, it's like a family law practitioner jumping into criminal court. It's not what they do. It's still a trial. But I think one of the things that might be helpful, I don't know what the agenda is for the Advanced Family Law Conference, but if you're coming to make the State of the Court address again this year, that would be a great opportunity to hit 1,800 people, and suggest that would be a very helpful process for those of the attorneys that are in attendance. And I know that's always the best attended conference that we have.
I think it's the best attended in the country. It's huge. And so it is a very good opportunity. But what are you suggesting, just to let them know about the work of the commission and the need here in terms of attorneys who have expertise in the area for mediation?
Because I think if we say it and it comes from you, not from me or just in my county, then it's coming from the Supreme Court, that it's something that is valuable, and then that's going to put some ideas out there for some of the judges. It's going to put some ideas out there for some of the attorneys, and then I know our CPS prosecutors attend the conference, and they're in our local district attorney's office, and our local district attorney's office has actually tried every year to make some funds available to help with the fiscal element of the mediation, and that might be something that sparks some interest in some other county or district attorney's offices as well. But I think mentioning it, there's weight behind it when it comes from you, and and that's something that'll spark some interest. I think, I would hope anyway.
Thank you, Judge. That's a great idea. For family group conferencing, I remember years ago when we did this in Tarrant County, there was a gentleman who did that, and they were, it was paid for by, I think, local government, but it wasn't just it wasn't like mediators that are different, volunteer or not volunteer, but attorneys who are appointed to do it or whatever. So is that the case now, that one person is facilitating this per, local community area?
The department actually has staff that are trained, that are CPS employees that do that work now, Justice Learman. And I'd also piggyback on what Judge Hustetler said. During COVID, the commission compiled, I think Dylan did all the work, compiled a list of mediators statewide who could do Zoom mediations, and that was very beneficial. That may be also something you want to present in your speech.
Okay, that's wonderful. Thank you very much.
Justice Lehrman, it sounds like there may be even room for getting this subject on the agenda at the conference, not just a sort of a mention, but maybe, a panel discussion of folks who have had success stories in mediation, talking about qualified mediators around various localities around the state. And
are you all talking about at the child abuse workshop, or as a regular? I usually make the regular presentation to the whole group, but are we talking about, there's also a large number of CPS practitioners who go to the workshop. It's huge, like 500-600 people, but it's not the entire audience. So what are you all suggesting there?
maybe we can work with Judge Hunter and the section to see if they have room on their agenda in the one-day workshop, or if it's more appropriate for the larger conference.
Okay.
Well, I can, this is Judge Hunter. I can tell you that Advanced Family, the agenda is set in January. So that's done for this year. However, we certainly can make some mention of some of the things briefly. If we can get, if I can get some talking points, I'll be happy to. A lot of the urban areas have private mediators that mediate specifically for Child Protective Services cases. And we have a number of members of the Child Protective Services section who are mediators. So that's something that the section can provide also. Section can provide some training in that respect. But I can tell you that I'm not sure about the rural areas, but the section is putting together some trainings that will be a traveling roadshow to rural areas. And
I think we may have lost Judge Hunter for a minute.
we can put mediation on that list of trainings.
Well, this is a great synthesis of ideas, and we are talking about the next fiscal year, so maybe we can plan ahead and get on that January timeline for the next year to get a full session. But as a stopgap, we could try to make a few mentions this year, which would be great. I do want to transition, but before I do, I saw Judge Morales and Judge Coley had their hands up. Did y'all want to mention anything on this topic?
I actually was going to say exactly what Judge Hoffman said, that with Zoom, we're able to expand the possible mediators that you can get. You don't necessarily have to stay within your region. I know a lot of us have a lot of difficulty in getting good mediators in our region. So that gives us an opportunity to expand. I would enjoy someone with an expansive CPS knowledge, as well as possible certification in motivational interviewing as well. That would be helpful with, of course, a mediation certificate. That would be extremely helpful for cases such as these. So I thank you.
Thank you. All right, Dylan, we would love to hear the other two ideas coming out of the Legal Representation Committee.
Thank you, Jamie, and good afternoon, everyone. There were two ideas, I think, that really came out of the Legal Representation Committee that I wanted to share with the larger commission. The first, as many of you know, we've made several efforts to focus on raising the quality of representation provided to parents and children, as well as to the department. But the issue was raised at our meeting that appellate representation is a key part of quality representation throughout the life of the case. Yet the Children's Commission doesn't currently have any resources designed to support and guide appellate attorneys. So that's a project that the Children's Commission could take on. I think it's very open as to what that project might look like. And we'd certainly appreciate commissioner feedback as to what's the best way to support appellate attorneys and how to raise the quality of appellate practice. The second issue that was raised at the Legal Representation Committee was the issue of attorney retention. There were several judges that vocalized that they are having issues keeping an adequate number of attorneys on their appointment list to take all the cases that they have on their docket. Now, this is obviously a very complex issue. There are issues both at the micro level, at the county level, that are sort of beyond the scope of this commission deciding about appointment plans. And there's also sort of a macro level that's also a little bit beyond the scope of this commission, changes to the entire system of providing representation. However, there are some projects that might be appropriate for the commission, and two that were suggested were a survey of judges and attorneys to try to establish sort of a baseline regarding this issue. How much of a problem is it, and what kind of solutions are currently being tried? And the second was a possible collaboration with the Child Protection Law section to have a greater presence at law school recruitment events and career days, to make sure that law school students understand that child welfare is a viable career path and how it might look for them and how it might be an option for law students who might not otherwise be aware of that. So that was the two projects that came out of the Legal Representation Committee that I wanted to make sure the commission was aware of.
Anybody have thoughts or feedback on those two ideas, the appellate attorney practice and attorney retention issues?
This is Darlene. Jamie, I cannot tell you, Dylan, how excited I am about the possibility of an appellate document. I threw that in the last 5 minutes of our committee meeting, and I didn't realize that you would possibly take it on. So I'm so excited. I can tell you right now, the Third Court of Appeals, we have the most pending termination of parental rights cases that we've had in 3 years per justice. And I think you're going to see that around the state as jury trials start ratcheting up. I think those are coming in faster than the criminal jury trials. So there's going to be a lot of decisions made at the appellate level on termination of parental rights. So I'm thrilled about that. Thank you.
I second that for sure. And I'm actually going to be presenting at the conference in the fall that Judge Hunter was talking about on issues, basically some of the appellate issues that we see that frankly, oftentimes could really be fixed like pretty easily at the trial court level. I think Chief Byrne would agree with me. Yes, it's easy for me to say that sitting from, my chair, not being the trial court judge. So it's not, met with any sort of criticism, but there are just some patterns that we see on appeal that I find that when the appellate lawyers and the trial lawyers sort of hear me present or hear us talk about some of them, there's like this light bulb that goes off and it's like, oh, I didn't realize that was, such a big deal. So anything we can do to raise awareness about errors and sticky issues that come up in these trials is going to be better for everybody and hopefully, especially for families.
Okay, well, if there are no other comments or feedback, this is extremely helpful for us in our planning. And I'll transition now to training and then data. So Milbrey, I think you're up first.
Yes, thank you, Jamie. Good afternoon, everyone. Renee and I are very excited to share our proposed training projects with you, and we look forward to your feedback. But before we do so, we wanted to give you all our framework. Last year, the training team set a 5-year goal for us to provide training opportunities to judges and attorneys in child welfare at all levels of practice, beginning, intermediate, and advanced. So just like college level courses, we would offer a 101, a 201, a 301, a 401, and a 501. At that time, we had already developed training content for new and less experienced attorneys and attorneys at an intermediate level of practice. And we also had training at an intermediate level for judges. So we set out to fill the training gaps by developing curricula which would address what we didn't yet provide. So working with our own resources and collaborating with external partners, we created some content in the past year to address judicial and attorney training needs. Some examples that y'all might be familiar with are the Child Welfare Primer webcast, the TDCAA Fundamentals of Child Welfare Law CLE series, and the Texas Bar CLE webcast on the importance of being trauma-informed. In addition to ongoing signature training events, such as the Child Welfare Judges Conference and the Trial Skills Training, what we'd like to propose for the Commissioner's consideration today are 3 main areas of focus in the next fiscal year, where we could continue to address pressing and ongoing training needs for judges and attorneys. These ideas were generated by Commission staff based on feedback that we received from judges and attorneys in our field, and also from training committee members who provided input at our recent meeting. The 3 main areas are providing judicial and attorney reasonable efforts academies, designing advanced trial skills training, and creating content for webcasts. So I'll start with the first area. This is judicial and attorney reasonable efforts academies. You all might recall that in January of this year, the Commission hosted a statewide judicial training in partnership with the National Capacity Building Center for Courts that we called the Reasonable Efforts Judicial Academy. We trained 22 judges, and the curriculum contained federal and state black letter law on reasonable efforts, many opportunities for discussion, and 4 simulations where judges practiced making reasonable efforts rulings in different fact patterns that represented various stages of a child welfare case. So based on the rave reviews from the judicial participants and requests from judges who were unable to attend, and a request to train attorneys so that judges and lawyers would all have the same education, we would like to host another Reasonable Efforts Judicial Academy and develop a Reasonable Efforts Attorney Academy. And to do so, we would modify the National Center's case scenarios to fit the Texas statutory scheme. And we would consider this an intermediate level training for both judges and attorneys. And now it's my pleasure to turn the training committee update over to Renee for the next two areas of focus.
Thank you, Mulberry. As part of our commitment to providing the full spectrum of 101 to 501 trainings to the legal community, the training committee would like to focus on the creation of an advanced trial skills training. Based on feedback from our faculty members and prior trial skills participants, the advanced training would be 1 to 2 days and would focus on a particular skill set, so the participants would have a much more in-depth training on the subject matter. Unlike the traditional trial skills curriculum, which covers trial jury selection through final closing arguments, the advanced trial skills training curriculum would change periodically in order for us to provide training on multiple topic areas. Some of the suggested topics we've received so far are contested adversary hearings, voir dire, ICWA, child testimony, admitting and contesting drug test results, and the use of medical experts. Another area of training that we would like to focus on is the growth of our in-house webinars for judges and attorneys. The Commission will continue to focus on producing content, on pressing child welfare issues, and on filling any gaps identified in training needs. Possible webcast ideas have currently included well-being and secondary trauma, medication issues in child welfare cases, and kinship issues. And finally, as we did with TDCAA, we will continue to work with partners such as Texas Bar CLE to create content outside of the Commission. This will include an essentials trainings for parents, attorneys, and attorneys ad litem. Each of the essentials trainings will provide 3 hours of MCLE content, and potential content includes a nuts and bolts of statutory hearings, trauma and secondary trauma, and trial attorney duties and responsibilities related to appeals and appellate deadlines.
Excellent, thank you. So do you all have any feedback about the Reasonable Efforts Judicial and Attorney Academies, the Advanced Trial Skills Training, or expanding our webcast capacity? Any feedback on whether those training needs rise to the top of our priorities?
Judge Huffstetler, Jamie, on the advanced trial skills, what is the time period? Well, what are the number of days that you're going to have on that? Is it a 1 day, a couple days? What are you looking at on that advanced?
Renee, do you want to take that one?
Sure. So Judge Huffstetler, that's still being developed, but what the faculty was thinking about doing is doing a more intensive 1 to 2 day training depending on the topic. So that would also lead for us to look at possibly having that be a traveling training as well. We've discussed maybe partnering with law schools to have that done at different law schools so that we can be around different areas of the state.
Awesome. I happen to be on the faculty of the National Family Law Trial Institute, and it's an 8-day course. And coming up at the end of this month, it is one of the best things in the world. So I'm really glad to see that the advanced trial skills with this group. And I think that's a great opportunity for the attorneys. I have sent my prosecutors to the National Family Law Institute, and I've sent attorneys to the trial skills that we've had in this arena. And I think it's really one of the best things that we can do for attorneys. It really does help them to focus and work on their skills. So kudos to the committee for putting that together and the advanced part of it.
Thank you. Judge Ferguson?
One thing I wanted to mention, I have talked to our attorneys ad litem out here in the ultra rural area and strongly encourage them to get this kind of training. Even though we don't have it as good as you're describing, there's still some training out there. They have collectively made clear to me that without scholarships, they can't afford to do it. And so I think we would really need to have that be an integral part of this concept, or the people who need it the most, where in my area, there might be 1 or 2 actual contested merits a year. In the cities, they may have them all the time. They can stay up and learn, but the people out here are young lawyers. They're struggling to make it, and they won't see a merits for another year or 2 on a case they're on. They desperately need the training you're describing. but they'll need help to get it. So I just want to put that out there.
Thank you. Justice Huddle, I'm embarrassed to even say your name. You don't need your hand up. Nobody does.
No, we're trying to run an orderly meeting. I'll put my hand up. Sort of following up on what Judge Ferguson just said. Are the trainings, you know, either webcast for people who can't attend in person, or perhaps this would be better to record them, and then to the extent it's feasible, people who could not come at the particular time for the live session could watch better. Is there sort of a recording and editing budget that we're contemplating for you know, having those available to lawyers, not just on the day or the 1 or 2 days, but in perpetuity?
It's extremely important to us that we provide free training and resources, and everything on our website is free, and we try to archive and maintain everything on our website and provide scholarships to in-person events. But I will defer to Milbury, who's the longtime expert on training at the Children's Commission.
Thank you, Jamie. One thing that comes to mind that might answer both Judge Ferguson's concerns and Justice Huddle's concerns are to continue to offer trial skills training and such kinds of trainings virtually. Is that way folks don't have to travel and incur that kind of time and expense, in addition to providing scholarships to our usual national and state conferences. We'll certainly consider all these ideas, but again, Renee has put on 3 fantastic trial skills trainings virtually. We're just now getting back to being able to offer that in person. And the faculty has been very amenable to doing it either in 2D or in 3D. So we can continue to offer that and hopefully accommodate folks who would not otherwise be able to afford the time or the expense of travel. I hope that's helpful.
And feel free, if I may, just really quickly, with our trial skills training and what we would anticipate with our advanced trial skills training is it would be open to a smaller group so that we would be able to give that one-on-one focus. And what we do currently and what we plan on doing with our first in-person is that the costs of the hotel and participating in the training are covered by the Children's Commission. So I believe right now for the in-person, the only cost that comes up, which still could be a little bit cost prohibitive, is the travel to and from the conference for the participants. But we are currently going to have our first in-person fall trial skills training in late August, early September. That will be in San Marcos, Texas, and we do already have the application open.
Thank you. Judge Graves-Harrington, I see you have your hand up as well, and then we'll move on to data.
Okay, yes, I'll be really quick. I heard someone suggest recording it and putting it online. And I will just say that the attorneys at Lightem and my court have really benefited from the interactive aspect of the training. And so hopefully that won't go away. They've all benefited.
That was my question. My understanding of these types of intensive trial training courses like NETA puts on and that kind of thing, ABA has for years, that an important component of it is that it is in person because it is one-on-one. They're being recorded and they look at themselves in terms of what they're doing and then they get feedback from experts. Is that what we're talking about here? That type of a program that's very intense.
Yes, experiential, get to practice the skills, but there are some lectures that kind of lay out the meat and potatoes of that portion of the trial. And I think in the past we have archived some of those lectures. And then the more interactive is online with faculty and participants or in person.
And so I know that for a lot of those programs, it's not just the hotel and all of that's very expensive because they're usually like 8-day programs and travel, of course, but also the expense of the program itself is usually very high. Is that the case for this?
No, it's provided for free.
So that's amazing. That would.
So with the National, Justice Learman, the National Family Law Trial Institute, we always have some scholarships available.
Right.
And I'm able to get my prosecutors in on those scholarships. And it's scholarships, it's a $5,000 note to get in on that program.
I know.
for some of those. And we usually have a couple of scholarships that are available each year for the 8-day program. But it is intensive and it is interactive. And but for those of you who have some attorneys that are interested, just have them contact the scholar. We're already full this year, but have them get in early. And there are scholarships, at least to the, I don't know about the ABA, but the National Family Law Institute, we do have scholarships.
Thank you so much, Judge Hostetler. All right, we'll turn it over to Dylan to bring us home on the data committee.
Thank you, Jamie. The data committee met on May 3rd, and in addition to some of the existing data committee projects, they examined some preliminary data that they had requested regarding trends in removals, referrals, and investigations. And after examining that preliminary data, what the committee decided is they really wanted more detailed data regarding removals and referrals. They wanted more information, including the priority of the intake, more details about the allegations, and more details about the risk and safety assessments that are sort of match some of the trends they saw. So we're going to pursue that data and see if we can match it to the data we have existing and do a more comprehensive presentation about what we found prior to the Children's Commission meeting in September. The data committee also discussed the ongoing evaluation of hybrid and virtual hearings that's being conducted by the court administration. And the committee really felt they'd like to look and see what other studies are out there regarding comparable courts like child support or other courts that are also seeing changes in participation due to virtual hearing structure. So the committee is interested in expanding their understanding of how virtual hearings are happening, not just in child welfare cases, but in other similar kinds of cases.
Great, thank you, Dylan. So any thoughts on these two ideas of removal trends and virtual hearing participation? Judge Ferguson?
The issue that Dylan raised about hybrid hearings, the National Center for State Courts is doing a big project, a hybrid hearings project that's starting essentially now. And I'm looking off to the side because I'm trying to look at the dates. The focus group meets for the first time in June. I'm a member of that. It's in Virginia, so we'll be flying up to Virginia, and they're bringing people together from the entire country to talk about what we need to implement hybrid hearings in urban and remote areas. It certainly dovetails right with what you're saying. The only thing I can't tell by looking at this is when the formal findings will be presented. I see they have a presentation meeting in December of 2022. That may be far outside of what you're looking for, but certainly I will get some meaningful information that I can convey to you to use in your process from the NCSC portion.
Thank you, Judge Ferguson. That sounds perfect.
I also have a question, Dylan. Are you all working, you know that the Supreme Court Advisory Committee is looking at virtual hearings on a global basis in terms of determining what recommendations to make going forward as far as what we need to keep and et cetera. Is the commission in any way involved in that or having any type of contributions to that discussion with SCAC?
I'm not aware that we have any specific involvement in that. I think we had some previously. I don't think we have any active involvement in that process at this time. Jamie, I'm not sure if you know differently.
I understood that Judge Hoffman and maybe Judge Ferguson were involved in that effort.
Judge Ferguson, I thought, do you know about that?
I'm sorry, I was trying to forward this email to Dylan and I missed the question. What was the issue?
Supreme Court Advisory Committee that is looking at this issue of virtual hearings and what we need to keep and what we can learn from the pandemic and all that kind of thing. And as you know, that's what y'all are considering right now. And so what is the commission's involvement in that? And what is the involvement in terms of this area of child welfare as far as SCAC's looking at that part of it?
The one thing I can tell you at this point is the remote proceedings subcommittee sent in a bunch of reports for SCAC's consideration. I'm not sure where it is in that process now because some issues, there are opponents, of course, to everything. Right. And some of the opponents to the existence and use of remote proceedings have been working pretty hard at the SCAC, as I understand it, trying to slow that process down or even stop it. The only example I can give you is Justice Christopher came to me and mentioned at our judicial conference in Galveston that there are some judges who in their remote hearings turn off their own camera. And so the hearing is proceeding and the judge is off camera, which to me doesn't require special attention other than judicial training. It's the same thing as if Justice Lehrman, you and Justice Huddle got up and walked out in the middle of an oral argument and your chair was empty. So we feel like there are other ways to address those issues, but they're being used to slow down the process of see how bad this can go. Now, those of us who work in child welfare law know the astonishing benefits, but it has been difficult to convey that to a group of people who don't do that kind of law and has such a broader concern. Judge Hoffman may know better. I don't know that they have specifically invited the commission or a rep from the commission in there to speak on this issue. Judge Hoffman, do you have more about that?
To my knowledge, they have not. And I just echo what Judge Ferguson said.
So, and who's in charge? Do you know in SCAC who's dealing with that right now?
I don't know who's in charge of that. Most of my communications have come from Justice Christopher or other people who were on the remote proceedings task force. And then, of course, I hear rumors. But since I am not a member of SCAC, I'm not in the room unless I'm invited in. And that has not happened in the course of this part of the process.
So perhaps Justice Huddle and I need to get with Chip Babcock and see what we can do about that. Thank you.
Well, I'll conclude by saying that we're so appreciative of your feedback. I know that was a lightning round of information, and I will just reiterate that the door is open if you have additional feedback or thoughts about priority areas of focus. Last thing I'll mention is between February and now, we don't have many financial updates, but there is an updated financial report in the meeting notebook behind tab 4. Patrick Passmore is available. I'll pause for a second, see if anybody has any questions about that. Hearing none, I'll turn it back to you, Justice Lehrman. I believe it's time for the DFPS update. Thank you all so much.
Unmute there. Thank you so much. And I thought that was very helpful. A lot of really good information. And I think that's, at least from my perspective, the kind of thing that we need to be doing, really honing in on specific issues and talking it through with the various experts in the area. So thank you all for your commitment. I want to thank the staff, as always, for doing such a wonderful job as far as getting that together and presenting it in a very cohesive, wonderful manner, and for all of the valuable feedback. So thank you for that. And now we're going to have our CPS update from our resident experts from the department, Julian Bonaquisti and Sasha Roscoe.
Jillian, do you want to go first? Yeah, I can go. That's what I was asking you. I was trying to find you on the panel. Yeah, I can go first. I'll try to make this pretty brief. So I'm Jillian Bonaquisti. I'm the Director of Placement Services for DFPS, and I'm sitting in for Deneen Dryden, who is our Associate Commissioner of CPS. She is traveling today, and so she regretfully could not attend, but she asked me to provide you some information and some updates on specifically all of our kids who are without placement, and then some of the exciting capacity efforts that are really coming to fruition right now, just to give you an update on that. So I guess what I'll do is I'll start with just giving you an overview of the data. So in the month of April, so we're tracking these kids very closely. We know who these kids are. We know what their characteristics are, what their behaviors are. And so we have been struggling with the placement capacity crisis since the pandemic. Some of this is a result of the pandemic. I think a lot of businesses are struggling financially. I think they're struggling with getting quality staff. This is not just our contracted providers who are struggling. I think psychiatric hospitals are already struggling. So psychiatric hospitals are not able to keep some of our kids through those superior covered extended stay days that they used to. We're seeing more frequent discharges from psychiatric hospitals on shorter notice. And then also, juvenile justice, we're seeing more behavioral needs in kids since the pandemic. I think the pandemic affected the mental health of everybody, but our kids who have that trauma history, definitely, a lot of those kids are even displaying more significant behaviors than they were previous to the pandemic. So I think it's kind of what's been referred to as a perfect storm. So last year, in June and July is where it really peaked. On any one given night, we had, I think it peaked at about 195 kids in one night. And that was sometime in June or July of last year. We have worked very hard and we have significantly reduced that. I would say right around the holidays in January and February, our average number of kids per night was between 50 and 60. So we cut our rate of kids without placement by about 60%. We have seen an increase since that time. So in April, our average daily children without placement was about 74 or 75 kids. And then last night, I just got the data in and we have increased a little bit. So last night we were at 88. Some of this is going to be a natural increase as we get closer to the summer months. There are certain providers who are going to discharge kids at a higher rate. Because once the kids are not in school, it makes it a little bit more difficult for providers to meet the needs of a certain population of kids. So that's just something that's natural that happens around this time of year. We also saw kind of an increase in the spike last year around this time. So we're just really hoping that we can stay up to date and really get these kids placed quickly so that we continue to make progress and the summer months don't really have a significant impact on all the progress we've made in the past year. I do want to I think one of the most common misconceptions when I talk about kids without placement that our external stakeholders seem to be under the impression that this is a stagnant group of kids that, once you find placements for all these kids, we're going to be good to go. But on any given day, we have, between 10 and 15 kids that are coming into an unlicensed setting, and we have about 10 to 15 kids that are moving out. And so that's just the movement for kids who are without placement. So DFPS as a whole, we complete over 3,000 placements per month. And so when you're talking about just kids without placement, we may make a lot of progress in one day and move 10 to 15 kids out into licensed placements, which is of course where we want our kids to be. But then on that same day, you might have, removed a large sibling group, or you might have a kid that came that juvenile justice or law enforcement picked up. They were on runaway, they get dropped off. You might have another kid who gets discharged from a psychiatric hospital. And so the movement of kids is just so frequent that sometimes there are fluctuation changes just because it happens to be a bad day. So as far as current trends for the kids who are currently without placement, these are going to be our kids with the highest needs in our foster care continuum. They are primarily going to be teenagers. So in April, 85% of the kids were 13 to 17 years old, and 15% of them were 6 to 12 years old. So it's really like the older kids that we struggle to find foster homes for, and then kids that are just going to have some behaviors because they're teenagers, and that's part of normalcy. Most of our kids are without placement for less than 10 days. So these are typically going to be kids where they just come from a setting where we don't know they're coming, right? Like, so they're either being detained, they're released from detention, and then their parents feel like they can't meet their needs, so we get involved. Or you have a kid who's in a psychiatric hospital, and then they're all of a sudden, discharged after a couple of days. They come in, and it just takes a couple of days to really get the assessments you need to figure out where the kids need to go and to find those placements. When you see kids sitting in unlicensed settings for a lot longer, those are the kids that we really struggle with finding placement options for at this point in time. These kids' needs really lie in the intersection of needing mental health services, child protective services, and the juvenile justice system. So in April, of all the kids without placement, 90% of them had a history of psychiatric hospitalization. 90% of them had a history of aggression and defiance. So they were physically assaultive towards peers or adults. 60% of them have juvenile justice involvement, and about 75% of them have a history of running away. And so a lot of times our licensed providers can handle one specific part of that, one of those behaviors, but when they're compounded, it is very difficult for us to be able to meet their needs in a standard residential treatment setting. These kids' needs really do live at the intersection of the three agencies, TJJD, HHSC, and DFPS. So some of the things that we're doing, we have a quarterly meeting with psychiatric hospitals. That includes HHSC and our behavioral health team, and then Superior. And we all really come together to just kind of talk about the issue, come up with some kind of strategic solutions, and see how we can kind of bridge that gap. We also are starting discussions with TJJD to see how they can assist us and how we can assist them for those kids that have that juvenile justice involvement. Some of the things that we're doing on our end is we are expanding the treatment foster family care program. This is a very specific treatment modality for kids to avoid kids going into a residential treatment setting. Currently, we have 3 treatment foster care providers in the state, but we are going to expand that program. So now any child placing agency who can meet the requirements of the program can sign up and they can verify treatment foster care families. Another initiative we are working on is the Qualified Residential Treatment Program, which is still in the pilot phase. We are working very closely with the Children's Commission on the court requirements for the FFPSA as it relates to QRTP. And there will be some trainings in May that are being geared specifically towards you all, other judges, attorneys, and the Children's Commission is partnering with us on that training. We also just recently posted a request for applications for capacity grants. The legislature was very generous, and we have $19 million that we are going to be awarding to providers. So these are contracted providers. It can be residential treatment centers or child placing agencies. The target for these, we call them capacity grants, and they're really meant to expand capacity specific for the population of kids who have complex mental health and behavioral health needs. So we're really trying to target our kids who are currently without placement. So helping and putting some money out there so that these providers who are already struggling from the pandemic might be able to have the capital to expand their facility, fix things in their facility, give their hiring bonuses to staff. We're just really asking providers to be as creative as they can. And, looking for like crisis stabilization centers, maybe transitional living programs that are more geared to work with kids who have those complex mental health issues that really can't succeed in a traditional transitional living program. And then I think that's about it, but really we're just really trying to collaborate. We're willing to listen to any ideas anybody has. We're really willing to try anything, but there's a lot of this that really just falls outside of our scope. And so that's why we're trying to take a collaborative approach with other agencies to kind of try to make some progress on this. And I know that was a lot of information, but I knew I had a very short amount of time. So if you guys have any questions, I can answer some questions for you.
Jillian, just real quick, I see hands raised, but can you talk a little bit more about the collaboration between DFPS and HHSC on this? It just seems like that there's a real need for partnerships to address, the kids obviously are under your care, but also to make sure that parents are not having to give up custody just to get these services. So I'm just curious of what sort of that interplay is doing.
Yeah, and I can talk about that at a high level because so we have developed what we call the interagency team. And this is a team that is going to consist of a director. His name is Sergio. He actually works for DFPS, but he has recently hired a team of care coordinators who are going to be assigned to specific areas and are only focusing on kids who are without placement. And the role of the care coordinators is to really help regional staff navigate the gaps in our systems. And so that is just starting now. And so they've already, they kind of hit the ground running because they're already meeting with the kids, learning about the kids. And what they'll do is once we find a placement for the kids, they will actually work with our agency and also HHSC and follow that kid for at least 90 days after they're placed in a licensed setting, so that they can help ensure that superiors at the table, that the services that the kid needs get there, that they get there fast, and that there isn't a disconnect just because everybody's so focused on the crisis and the day-to-day. So I think that's one of the biggest things we're doing. But then there's also several meetings with leadership from each agency, and it's really just to kind of discuss and problem solve and make sure that we kind of stay in communication. And I think HHSC is increasing a lot of their services as well, but I don't have a lot of details. I see Anne has her hand raised, and I know that she's probably knows a lot of this information too. So she could also be a resource for some of the things that we're doing to collaborate. I'm sorry. And I saw your hand was raised and I just mentioned you, so.
Actually, Jillian, I didn't have a question. I had a comment. This is an enormously complex subject. And you have done the best job I have ever heard of laying out succinctly and very clearly the data, the issues, and all of the terrific work that you and others at the department are doing. I've just got to thank you. I know how hard you're working. The Casey team has been working side by side with you and others, and your efforts, they're just very impressive. Thank you, Jillian.
No, I appreciate it. I mean, I've had a lot of practice in trying to consolidate this complex issue in a very small amount of time. I will also say that the department has stepped up and hired some temporary workers that we're working on getting transition into full-time positions. So we'll actually have more placement staff that can search for placements into residential settings. And so I do think that once we get those, this is something that we're requesting, but we're just trying to find the resources internally. And so we do know that some of the issue is just resources, right? If you have more referrals and less beds, then it's going to take you longer. And at some point the system's going to backlog. And so I think that's kind of one of the issues that happened, because we lost probably 14 to 1,500 residential treatment center beds, probably sometime between fiscal year 20 and 21. Luann?
Hi, Jillian.
Hi, nice to see you again.
You too. Thank you so much for your presentation. I just wanted to say, and if someone knows about this, please pipe in, but if I'm not mistaken, Travis County has a pretty awesome initiative going on right now to address this issue. And Judge Martinez Jones, I believe, is doing a lot to actually decrease numbers in Travis County. If I'm not mistaken, in the last couple of weeks, I've heard that I believe I heard a couple of weeks ago, it was 0 kids from Travis County. And so if we can learn about what is happening on the ground in counties in Texas that are addressing this head on to prevent it from happening, I think that that would help a whole lot. Just because I think that there are some things going on that are looking positive in terms of preventing kids from ending up in this kind of situation. So if anybody knows about that, I don't know if there's any judges from Travis County that might, but I would love to hear about that.
Yeah, and Lindsay Van Buskirk is the regional director for Region 7. She is heavily involved, probably more than any other regional director I've seen. And so she would be a valuable resource too, if you all wanted her to come on and talk about it. And I know she works really closely and has a good relationship with Judge Martinez Jones. And so I think that they could both present on it. And, I could probably learn some things from what they're doing as well. I know a lot about it, but it is pretty amazing what they're doing. And also to clarify, we don't have, so all of our kids that I'm talking about in unlicensed settings, none of them are in an office or in a CPS office. And so we're pretty proud of that because we've come a long way since that was implemented in statute. And so they are all in more home-like settings, although unfortunately some of them are still in hotels, but we're trying to get those kids even moved to leases for like houses and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, this was presented at the, it's Texans Care for Children at the conference there when the judge was given an award. And I believe she said something about the decreased numbers in Travis County. So it would just be great for us to all learn from each other if there's positive things happening.
Sheila, I see your hand raised.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to piggyback. I think Rosa Marie was actually next, but if I could just really speak briefly on this matter. Judge Martinez Jones is on our equity work group, and she has talked quite a bit about really implementing new and innovative ways of working with children and families to prevent removals to start, but also really looking at new and innovative ways in terms of ensuring kids are not in offices and that they have safe placements. And so, I think it would be a great opportunity. It would have been awesome if she could have been on this call and come after you, Jillian, and I agree with Anne, outstanding presentation, but it would have been nice to sort of have her come in and talk about what she's been doing and how she's been working with the department to really address the needs of families in a humane way to reduce those numbers. So I'm excited to hopefully have her come back maybe on the our next meeting to talk about that. I think it would be helpful.
Jamie, why don't we put that on our list, because Judge Martinez Jones is very active also in the child protection law section, and she does wonderful things, and I know she would be very happy to come and give us a presentation at our next meeting, and she is doing phenomenal things in Austin.
So really quickly, Judge Martinez Jones is it's a pilot court, and it's called the Travis County Child Welfare Reimagined. And if you all want to look at some of the information about it, it's traviscountycps.com, and it lays out the pilot program as well as some of the results thus far. And I've been following it pretty closely. I would love to see something like that here in Harris County as well. Judge Brown, I see you on here somewhere, but I would love to see that happen here as well, nonetheless.
Judge Alvarado, I know you've done a lot of work in Bexar County as well.
Okay. And I was just going to hop on. Judge Martinez Jones had sent me some materials on that too. I'm going to go into my inbox and try to find it because I remember Judge Graves Harrington, the link that she sent me for it. So you basically told everybody about it. But I think I have some literature she sent me too. And if I find it, I'll forward it on to Jamie so she can share with everybody. Jillian, with respect to what you were talking about, if I can just circle back, you had mentioned something about the expansion of the treatment foster care providers and that right now we've got 3 in the state. Can you tell me where they are and then what the plans are for further expansion and where those expansions are going to take place at?
Yeah, so originally when we implemented the treatment foster care program, we did so through a competitive procurement. And at the time, we only had 3 providers. So it's CK Family Services, and they're in the Dallas area. And then we have the Bear Foundation. They're primarily in North Texas as well. And then we also have Arrow, and Arrow has some treatment foster homes in the Region 8 area, so Bexar County area, and also like the Valley, like the Harlingen kind of Region 11 area. But we still have gaps in the state. And last December, we expanded the age. So originally treatment foster care was only for kids who were 10 or younger. And so once we realized that the program had good outcomes and kept kids out of RTCs, we decided to expand the age limit up to 17. And so we just kind of engulfed all of their capacity with that change. And so they're trying to build their capacity, but they can only build it so much and our need is so great. So now we are posting an open enrollment, and open enrollment will just always remain posted. It's just like our contracts for just child placing agencies or residential treatment centers. So any child placing agency can apply. We're not like capping the limit. So every child placing agency in the state could apply, and then they could have a population of foster homes that specialize in treatment foster care.
And with respect to the capacity issue, do you know about what the approximate capacity is right now for those? I'm really interested in Bexar County, but obviously from a global perspective, so everybody knows, what does our capacity look like in that respect?
Yeah, so I think it was under 150 beds. I can get some actual current data for you. But I want to say it was maybe around 150 homes, but we had about 96 kids, I think, currently placed. And so that's kind of a thing too, is that you have your license capacity, but then you have the real capacity, which is often very different. So every treatment foster family home can take 2 kids. And that's what they're licensed for, is to take 2 kids, but most of them feel like they can only handle and can meet the needs of 1 kid at a time. And so that's where you see that we only have, we're at capacity, but we still have some licensed capacity available, but that's why we have over 100 homes, but then we have less than 100 kids placed. But when you're talking about statewide, 100 homes and 100 kids is not very much, considering we have about 1,000 kids in congregate care right now.
Right. Well, I would like, if possible, just to be sent that information on the open enrollment issues, as well as just the expansion with the treatment providers, because that's where I'm thinking, or I'm seeing our greatest need right now, particularly with our kids in CWOP in Bexar County. And so I would really like to just get as much information as I can on that, and then also perhaps connect people to that open enrollment
as well. The other question that I had for you is with respect, it's CWAP related, and that's with respect to therapeutic providers that would be staffed specifically towards kids in CWAP. Is there anything on the horizon regarding that as like specific special issue therapists that would be able to be deployed out on location to kids that are in CWAP specifically? Because that's where I'm also seeing a huge disconnect, is these kids that are there, they're not receiving the necessary services. And so, and a lot of it has to do with just therapeutic care.
Yeah, and I can't speak to that in detail because Liz Cromry's shop handles that, but I do know that they implemented a contract that does allow for in every area of the state for those kids to receive services on site.
Okay.
And I can get more information about that contract as well.
Thank you.
Thank you all. I hate to interrupt, but we want to be respectful of everyone's time, but that's very important. And of course, this is something that is on the top of everybody's list in terms of what's going on, and it's very important. And always, I always thank the department, and I know that Justice Huddle and all of us do. We understand that the work you do is very demanding, very hard. You get a lot of the brunt of criticism constantly, and we really do appreciate all that you do. And in that same vein, Sasha Roscoe, could we turn it over to you for a bit?
Sure, I can give a very quick update because I know you all have to wrap up this agenda. I just wanted to mention briefly, Amy already talked about the House Bill 3041 pilots. We are in the process of kicking off negotiations with the SSCCs to stand up evidence-based services in those 4 catchment areas. And then, and we've been talking to Jamie about then wanting to create both kind of regional or catchment area work groups and a sort of steering committee state level work group to pull in our investigations and our FBSS staff along with you all in the judiciary so we can kind of real time figure out who we are referring families to the courts for court ordered services in those pilots, keep everyone informed, and make any adjustments as needed to benefit from the standing up of some of these evidence-based services that haven't been available before for family preservation. So we're going to be really building the plane as we fly it, and but we're on the move now, and we will be in touch. And we welcome any feedback. I mean, we don't have time to talk about it today, but really any feedback about thoughts around what the courts sort of would like to or sort of see as potential for ordering court ordered services where they see the need there. Anything we can be mindful of as we stand up these 4 family preservation pilots. So more to come on that, as Amy mentioned, but otherwise, I can also just mention very briefly about the disproportionality report, which I think I also ran out of time and didn't get to talk to you about last time, but the bottom line is not a lot of changes to kind of the disproportionate representation of African-American families in the system over in the last reporting year, which was FY20. So neither good news, not bad news, but not good news either. There's no improvement in that disproportionality. The only sort of thing of note is that we seem to be getting better data and less unknown demographics to report on. But anytime you all are interested, I can bring more information about that to a discussion because that work has now moved under me. But that's all.
I just have a question about, because of some recent legislative changes in terms of removals and inability to remove, are you all keeping track of the data behind that and in tracking how much that has affected the removal rate and how that has affected the welfare of the children involved?
Well, I mean, I know that there's a lot of discussion about the drop in both removals and the drop in referrals to family preservation or FBSS in general, whether court ordered or not court ordered, and because it does seem to be multiple factors feeding into those shifts. So I can't speak as much to like the long-term safety and whether I don't think we've had enough time yet to sort of see that recidivism or outcomes for those families that have been closed out or children that haven't been removed. The issue of why we're also seeing a drop in family preservation at the same time, where we might have anticipated, and what I've heard from my colleagues is they did anticipate an increase in FBSS with the reduction of non-emergency removals. That sort of seems like a logical thing to expect, and that's not happening. And so there's been a lot of internal conversation about why that is and how much of that is internal policy and practice changes that took place with the implementation of the concurrent being able to open FBSS during investigations and starting services sooner. And maybe those have been more successful and rapid, and they haven't. That's one thing I've heard. They haven't needed to open an FBSS case. They've been able to deliver services within the investigation and then close out before progressing. So, but I think there's been so many changes all at once that I think, to be honest, folks are really still in that exploratory stage and noting that there's just so much flux right now. And so I think that's why I think we want to just real time look at these pilots so we can keep talking about what's happening with all of the various parties, in addition to just seeing what happens if we refer families to whatever evidence-based services the SSCCs are going to stand up.
Thank you. And again, thank you, both of you, for being here and being so involved in what you all do at the department. It's important and it's hard, and we know it.
Absolutely. And I see Katie's hand up. I don't know, Jamie, if I have time to answer her question, but.
I'll be very brief. Hi, Sasha. What is the agency's plan with regard to a Family First Prevention Services Act plan that would have to be submitted to the feds for approval?
Yeah, so we don't have it since we're still using FFTA funds and we're not asking to draw down 4E anytime in the next year or two. We have a kind of a placeholder for the legislative session to see what they might do in 24-25. But what we do know, we'll likely submit a plan to draw down or try to match the state's contribution to serving pregnant and parenting foster youth, because they do contribute state dollars towards that eligible population already. And then I think we're just waiting to see how much we can learn from these pilots quickly and what we want to then propose to the legislature based on those pilots, which is both a combination of either scaling what worked in the pilots or considering other populations beyond court-ordered FBSS, like reunification or post-adopt or non-court-ordered FBSS. So I think we have a big placeholder to talk about that. And until we don't have a lot of urgency to submit that prevention plan without a need to draw down funds yet. So that's it.
Thank you all very much. Okay, so now we need to move on to our report from Megan Lavoie from the Office of Court Administration. Megan, are you?
Yes, I'm here.
There you go. Hi.
Hi,
Welcome.
how are y'all? Thank y'all for letting me join you this afternoon. I have a brief update from OCA. I'm going to start with our what's going on in our children's courts. Obviously, Judge Gonzalez in Dallas and Judge James in Bryan continue to utilize their hybrid hearing equipment. We're working with the commission to identify the next set of courts to use hybrid hearing equipment by utilizing an upcoming survey to gather information on how courts are currently holding hearings and how they plan to hold hearings in the future. We continue to work with Jeffrey Cox, who was hired as a data analyst through a one-year grant with the commission to look at the data in CPCMS, which is the case management system, and provide analysis. He's also assisting in looking at the efficiency of virtual child welfare hearings as well. We continue to work with the commission and the Department of Family and Protective Services on the Early Intervention Court Liaison project in Lubbock, Belton, and Galveston. Since the last commission meeting, the liaisons for Galveston and Bell County have been hired and have begun their work. We expect to hire the liaison for Lubbock County in the next few weeks. We have an upcoming CPC judges meeting in October with a pre-child welfare judicial conference session for the Child Protection Court associate judges and their staff. A separate training will be provided for staff while the judges attend the conference. OCA just recently released their annual statistical report for fiscal year 2021. So I was going to share some stats from that with y'all. So overall, 6.9 million cases were filed in Texas courts in fiscal year 2021. That is down 6% from fiscal year 2020 and 21% from fiscal year 2019. Child protection cases were down 10% from fiscal year 2020 and 19% over the past 5 years. We had 11,233 new child protection cases filed in 2021. That is the lowest level since 2014. Child protection cases make up 4% of the more than 305,000 family law cases filed in fiscal year 2021. The largest portion of family law cases is divorce with no children at 21%, filed by child support cases at 18%. Our annual report is published on our website and it's currently on our front page. So if you want to dive deeper into some of that data, you've probably heard a lot of people talking about the court backlog that our court system is currently facing because of the COVID-19 pandemic. When defining the backlog, we're using the total number of active pending cases in March 2020 versus the active pending cases on March 1st, 2022. At the district court level, the backlog is roughly 157,000 cases statewide. At the county court level, the backlog statewide is just over 30,000 cases. 70% of the total backlog is in roughly 20 counties. The family backlog is up 10%, or roughly 4,500 cases at the county level, and 17%, or roughly 54,000 cases at the district level. So the focus on the top 20 counties is important. The Texas judiciary received $7 million in COVID ARPA funding through Senate Bill 8 during the third special session last fall. That money can be used for visiting judges and court staff. We're focusing on the top 20 counties at the district level to disperse those funds. We have asked counties to submit a backlog plan and funding requests that are due to us later this month, actually next Friday, to help us identify what additional resources are needed, such as court coordinators, clerks, court reporters, and visiting judges. In addition, OCA is also working with the National Center for State Courts to do statewide training and backlog best practices and case flow management for our judges. So every state in the country is dealing with a court backlog. It's going to take the efforts of the entire judiciary, from judges to district and county attorneys, clerks, defense attorneys, to work together to make a significant difference in cutting down that backlog. Just a couple more brief updates. Since I last spoke with you, OCA launched the Public Safety Report System on April 1st. The PSRS was part of bail reform that was passed in the second special session last fall. The Public Safety Report System compiles a report that contains the defendant's criminal history, along with whether the individual was eligible for personal bond, and provides other important information to magistrates. Judges must consider the Public Safety Report System before setting bail. In addition, the new legislation requires magistrates to get 8 hours of training on setting bail, in addition to a training from DPS to view and query criminal history. So judges are spending a lot of time getting training hours over the next couple of months. So OCA is required to publish these bail forms on our website. The bail forms contain defendant's name, offense, a bail amount, and the magistrate who set the bail. So as of this morning, we have more than 48,000 bail forms on our website, and you can go and search them and look at all of them. Also, the Judicial Council is starting to ramp up its work. The council will hold its next meeting next Friday on May 20th. The council has 4 committees this year covering civil justice, criminal justice, data, and public trust and confidence. Some of the issues that the council is looking at include remote hearings, court backlogs, and collecting case level data. So that's just my brief update on what OCA has going on. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Megan, for that. And that may be something that we need to, that Justice Huddle and I need to talk to you also about, the interplay between our Supreme Court Advisory Committee and the work that you all are doing as far as virtual hearings in this area of the law. So let's plan on
That would be
visiting
great.
about that. Thank you very much. And now I'm going to turn it over to Justice Huddle.
Thank you. And thanks, Megan, for that good update. So we are coming in on the home stretch here, and we'd like to transition in the last little chunk of time that we have left during our meeting to get some inputs from the Collaborative Council. And so those are really in two formats. One is before the meeting, we take written input. And so we have two written reports at tab 5 of your meeting notebook at page 57 for those of you following along in the electronic version. And then we also have two brief reports we're going to get live in real time here. And so those two, I'm going to tell you both of them and then hand it over to Barbara, our first presenters. We're going to hear from Barbara Elias Percival, who is with the Texas Lawyers for Children, and then Mary Christine Reed with Texas Foster Youth Justice Project. So with that, let me call on Barbara.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here and able to speak with you and give you an update on our work at Texas Lawyers for Children. And I want to start by saying that our organization was extremely excited that Senate Bill 904 passed, and that's the one that requires attorneys representing children in the department's care to have training on the impact of trauma. And I'll let you know that Dr. Bruce Perry is going to be doing a webinar for the Child Protection Law section on the topic of how truly understanding trauma can improve children's lives and help with the capacity crisis. And so that will be something to watch for when that comes out. So the materials at tab 5 from our organization give you information about a 15-hour trauma training program that our organization has developed. And we developed this in 2019 and did it live at first, and then with COVID went to webinar. And then by the end of the month, in the next couple of weeks, we're launching a digital version that'll be available 24/7. It's 15 hours of training on trauma, and at tab 5, you can see the agenda for the 15 hours. As you know, Senate Bill 904 does not specify a number of hours for the trauma training. It specifies particular topics. And so judges, as you're looking at trauma training that comes before you and deciding if your attorneys have fulfilled the requirements of the statute, I encourage you to look at the topics of the training and see if they match the topics of the statute, because just because it's called trauma training wouldn't mean, of course, that it meets what the statute is requiring. So if you look at tab 5 and then see the agenda for our training, there are 10.5 hours that we think are necessary to fulfill the requirements of the statute. And then there's another 4.5 hours that are helpful practice tips and strategies in addition. So you've got the agenda. Then on the next page, you have the homepage of our trauma training portal, where all of these, where the videos, it's all by video on our digital version, where they will be housed in our online legal resource and communication center, which is at texaslawyersforchildren.org. And then the next page at tab 5 is a list. It's our trauma training toolkit that we developed, that are materials and handouts that our organization created specifically in connection with our trauma training program. And then the next page you have our additional resources, links to websites. And for those who may not know, our online legal resource and communication center is free for judges and attorneys in Texas handling child abuse cases. And it has a very, very comprehensive child abuse library that's all organized by topic. And so on this page in tab 5, you see where it says other resources in TLC's online center, a list of the topics we have on trauma. And there are hundreds of articles and research papers and handouts and all kinds of information that we've collected from other organizations, in addition to the ones we've developed ourselves for the topic of trauma and learning more about it. And then the last thing you have at tab 5 from our organization is the update that says impact of legal professional trauma training. These are quotes from the trainings that we've had around the state and the webinars that we've done, quotes from attorneys and judges who have attended those trainings. I know some of you judges on the commission have attended our training. And then the last page is bullet points on specific things judges and attorneys have done differently or been able to do in response to the trauma training. And one that's not on there that I think is very, very important is that one judge has told us that he is going to require all mental health professionals who are evaluating, diagnosing, treating, or prescribing psychotropic medication to children in his counties where he presides. He wants the department to show and prove that those mental health professionals have had adequate training on trauma, since the symptoms of trauma overlap with mental disorders like oppositional defiant disorder and bipolar disorder and ADHD, and so many things that foster children are diagnosed with and then put on psychotropic medication for. And if they don't have that disorder, then their behavior gets worse and worse and worse because the medication is wrong for them. They're really suffering from trauma, but they're being treated with a mental illness. So just wanted to make you aware that within the next 2 weeks, this will be coming out. It is free for judges and attorneys, totally free. All the materials on our resource center are free. So hope you will spread the word to attorneys in your counties that this training is available for them and free. Thanks so much. I'll be happy to answer questions.
Barbara.
Questions for Barbara. That's really a lot of dense and very useful information. Sounds like we have a question.
I was just going to say, thank you for sending out that notice about the trial skills. I got that at 10 minutes to 1.
Sorry, I couldn't do it sooner.
No worries. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you for that helpful presentation, Barbara. We certainly appreciate it. And then we can turn to Mary's presentation. Mary?
Hello, I'm Mary Christine Reed. I'm the director of the Texas Foster Youth Justice Project. We provide free legal services to current and former foster youth. I wanted to just bring out about a reminder about some important financial relief funds that are available for current and aged out foster youth between the ages of 14 through 21. These are special federal pandemic related funds, and they're available through August of this year. Just because of the way the process works to get approval for the funds to be issued, it'd be much better to apply for a youth to ask for this help sooner rather than later. It's a wide variety of expenses that it could be used for, but anything that qualifies under the federal Chafee laws. But one of the areas are things related to education, things supporting transitioning to independence, and transportation related. And so, for example, if you have somebody who has become a licensed driver, but the hurdle is paying the extra cost for their insurance, or they've managed to buy a car, but they need that help with the first 6-month policy for the insurance. I've had clients who have gotten that car insurance covered. Youth who are in care, which is probably the ones most of you are dealing with, even if they're in extended foster care, they can contact their PAL worker to ask for this assistance. And there is in the material a link to a flyer we have with that includes some hints about some things that maybe would qualify. And so if you have any questions about that flyer, you can feel free to reach out to our project or anything about this program, the funds that DFPS is administering through their PAL program. The other thing I wanted to mention is identification documents for foster youth. By the time they're 16, they're supposed to have their Texas ID card, certified copy of their birth certificate, a social security card. I find all the time when I work with youth who are 16 and older, I do surveys, so few of them have that. And these documents are so critical to transitioning to independence. They can't get a job, they can't get an apartment, they can't function in our society. And they're supposed to have them before they're 16. And part of getting them before they're 16 is helping them to learn how to handle them properly, like I did with my own children. And sometimes they lose them. What I just wanted to let you all know is we have some helpful information on our webpage. We have a whole section about identification documents. There is especially a document on the homepage, texasfosteryouth.org, and this is also in the materials that I submitted, the link to the webpage, about how foster youth can get their birth certificate and Texas identification card, and it's step-by-step instructions. It is written for youth, but lots of people who work with youth have used it too as a guide to help them, because one of the reasons the youth are not getting these is it is incredibly complicated. And if you've been to DPS in the last few years, you probably know what I'm talking about, what they need. And there's special laws to make it easier for our foster youth to be able to get these documents. And we need to be taking advantage of them. We're planning to work with CPS to update some of their materials so it's easier for the caseworkers to know exactly what they need to do and take advantage of these new laws to try to make the process easier. So I just wanted to draw that to your all attention and just remind everyone, it's everyone involved in these use cases to make sure this is happening. The judges, the caseworkers, the ad litems, the CASAs. We all need to make sure the youth are getting it. If they don't have an ID card, that's probably an indication that they're missing some of the other documents as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you for that input, and thanks to you both, Mary and Barbara, for the work that you do with the Collaborative Council. So with that, any questions for either of the members of the Collaborative Council? If not, Justice Lehrman, I'm pleased to move on to ask the Commission at large whether we have any new business to take up in our last few minutes together. It sounds like no new business at this precise moment, Justice Lehrman, so I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you so much, Justice Heddle. And again, thank you all so much for all of your valuable time and your wonderful contributions. It's so important, and we all appreciate it so very much. Please let us know, as I said earlier, for any ideas you have about new business, things that you all want us to talk about, things that you think are cutting edge, things that are really that you notice that are causing problems in your area, and ideas you have as to how we can help address these issues that are so challenging, so complicated, and don't have easy answers. And so please let us know. The Commission, Jamie, and the other staff will send out a questionnaire asking about how you feel about this. Please let us know. And also about the whether you think the virtual meetings, on balance, what makes more sense to continue doing this every other meeting, or should we do it in person? Because that's something we want input from you about. Remember, we have 2 more meetings. We're going to have 4 meetings this year, and we hope to continue that in the future. Our next meeting will be in person on September the 16th. And then we will have another meeting virtual again on November the 4th. So please put those on your schedule. We will give you more information about the specifics of the September 16th meeting. Please be aware that we do have the mental health roundtable that's coming up. And so please try to stay tuned about that. That's on June 24th. Anything else that anybody wants to comment on this time in we have a few minutes left if anybody has anything they want to talk about. Okay, I guess everybody wants to go start. Oh, no, we do. Luann, yes, Luann.
Well, I just wanted to say that it'll be very timely to have that June 24th discussion. And I did send Jamie some information about a PBS documentary that Ken Burns did that will be premiering on PBS on June 27 and 28. And it is called Hiding in Plain Sight, Youth Mental Illness. And so I would encourage those of you who want to watch to watch. I think it should be very interesting. Thank you.
And when is that again, Luann?
It is going to be on June 27 and 28 on PBS.
And what's the name of it again?
Hiding in Plain Sight, Youth Mental Illness. And it is produced by Ken Burns, who, as you know, has done a lot of work on history and other things relating to the United States. So, yes.
Thank
and
you.
I sent Jamie the link as well, so she can get that out.
Great. Thank you so much. And anyone else? Anything else? Okay. Well, thank you again very, very much. Let us know. Please give us your feedback. And we look forward to seeing you again on September 16th. Meantime, have a wonderful summer. Thank you.